and welcome to the third and final review of the evening. Up this time is Bokuten, Why I Became an Angel. Worth noting that we just did an interview about this title, this past Wednesday?
I believe so.
Yeah. So if you want to learn more about, you know, the various detailings of the game, we talk about it with our good friend John in that interview. But for those who missed it, yeah, Bokuten is yet another visual novel from Manga Gamer. It's like I believe this is our first one of those for the year. Like,
Mm-hmm.
probably
Uh,
not going to be the last.
I was about to say, yeah.
Like, oh, but I'm like, well, this. Well, here's the thing. This thing is much more Twitch friendly than the Magic and Slash, not visual novel, but uh, like hack and slash game. Like,
hmm
no, like
Yeah.
that's the kind of thing. If we stream, we wouldn't have a channel. Like,
Probably.
Indeed.
I mean, you could always just do the whole blur the entire thing and then just
Yeah,
have
let me get
something
right on
entirely
that.
yeah, like, well, it's like also worth noting that Bokuten could also fall in under this designation as well because Bokuten is an adult visual novel. It's just the Steam version has been censored. All of the sex stuff has been cut. I'm like, but it can be reinstated with the patch that is on the Manga Gamer website. I'm like, yeah. So this is one of those titles that has been edited to reach a non-mature audience, I guess. Like, or rather, I suspect that the reason why Steam came down on this game is because high schoolers are having sex in this.
Yeah.
which is definitely something that doesn't really happen all the time.
That,
But yes, I know it's different to be selling depictions of it.
yeah, I mean, honestly, I think that's one of those disconnects that John kind of ignores, or just Valve has a real problem with underage depictions of nudity, and remember that that nonsense from last year. But it's also this is a touchy issue. Maybe not so much here, but it's it's a real big issue in, say, Canada.
Mm-hmm.
Like where you're just flat out. It's like you can be prosecuted for this kind of thing. There, if I'm remembering correctly, maybe that's changed, but I definitely remember that being a thing at one point. And in the case of Bokuten, yeah, the artistic merit here is lower than other titles. I couldn't say it's completely gratuitous, because stuff does, unfortunately, stuff does happen during the sex scenes that are kind of important to the plot, depending on what route you choose. Like Chapter 3, like the particular choice I made ended up with a particular coupling getting together, and that had consequences. It does get mentioned later on, but that's an actual scene you will be missing that actually has relevant information. So it's all it's always a touchy issue when we're talking about minors and this kind of thing. Like, now I will note that the mature content descriptions mention that everyone is 18 years of age and older.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I get, like, okay.
Yes, we know it's not always plausible, but
Well,
they
I mean,
always say that for deniability reasons.
yeah, it's like I'm trying to remember the couple, like if the couple in question could actually be 18, and I'm like, I guess it's possible, but you know, yeah, more often than not, it's just bullshit to cover their asses legally.
Yeah, basically.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that being said, you know, the Steam version avoids that thing entirely. So it's not an issue with this copy of the game.
Hmm.
And if that is an issue with, you know, the people who would be listening to this, you know, just get the Steam version and don't bother with the patch.
Hmm.
You know, as far as the visual novel itself, it's a comedy romance visual novel, though it's surprisingly not a harem. You know, it's kind of got a pseudo harem going on there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but the thing is, you're not really the center of attention. Like, I mean, you're the errand boy. You know, and also the reason why everyone's gravitating is, you know, because of the angel. You know,
Mm-hmm.
because of Ein, who is the worst angel in in the fucking cosmos. Like seriously, that's kind of her gimmick.
Yeah.
You know, like I have serious like maybe not mythological, but I'm trying to think of the word. Like anyway, I have serious questions about what kind of angels are populating this world that can get injured and can die. Like, what happens to an angel when they die? Like,
There's probably another
Yeah.
visual novel for that later.
yeah, you know, it's like, believe me, this game is not really thinking about the ecclesiastical implications of this, because you know, like, you know,
Something when angels deserve to die.
well, it's more if angels die, they stop existing.
Uh,
You know, that's the whole thing that makes humanity special. We have immortal souls according to Christendom. Like, but this is actually getting off topic. You know, it's like, you know, anyway, since I knew is the worst angel in employment, apparently, you know, her fucking magical instrument gets shattered by a not magical arrow. I'm like, yeah, it's like
Yeah.
there's not. It's like there's not even a real justification, or at least from what I saw, for this in terms of why an angel's instrument can be obliterated,
Yeah.
or at least the strings can be obliterated. Like apparently, you know, the actual guitar is fine. You know, but the supposedly uncuttable red strings of fate, no, those are those are um, those are not resistant to an arrow.
Indeed.
It's like, yeah, don't go into this thinking about the religiosity or the supernatural aspects of angels or you
Mm-hmm.
know, heaven and earth. I'm like, because truth be told, this is more a wacky anime comedy interpretation of angels.
Yeah.
Emphasis on the wacky. Like, okay, look, I just really hate Ein. Like, a lot of it has to do with her voice actor. Like, fucking hell, just the screaming. Like, she screams a lot.
Are we
Yeah, she
talking like
does.
Black Clover's level annoying?
Not quite.
Not quite, but fucking hell, it's bad.
Yeah, she freaks
Like,
out a lot, basically.
now on the inverse, I will say my favorite character by a country mile is shockingly Tomoe. Okay, so here's the weird thing about this. Tomei's an actual character.
He
Like,
is.
I'm like, okay, you know, he's clearly got, you know, he's got the generic main character design going on there, and he's not voiced, but you know, not only does he have, you know, he has a distinct face. It's not like a partial face with, like, say, the eggs obscured or anything like that. You get to see him in detail, in cut scenes and all that stuff. He's detailed. Like, he's an actual character. Like, shit, he's an actual character than some actual characters I've seen. Like, he's got more personality than Tenchi. Like,
Yeah.
like, because he's got an actual personality.
He's got opinions on everything.
Yeah. He's got very, very, very deep-seated opinions on love.
Yeah.
Basically, he's a 70-year-old curmudgeon in a however old.
That's not inaccurate.
It's not even a teenage angst sort of hating love.
He's kind of cynical, basically.
Yeah. It's a much more. You clearly got burned by somebody hard. Kind of. And I presume that may be extrapolated on some of the routes or whatever. I'll be honest, I only played about 15 hours. I got into chapter 4. This is another long one. It's touting 40 hours like total because the way the gameplay structure, such as it is, works is the first chapter basically lays out the scenario, sets up the dynamics, all that stuff, but you can't actually make any choices. Like from the second chapter onward, I'm presuming like you need to the overriding goal is to restore the 4 or at least the 3 lost threads, because the second one gets automatically restored. And that's that's presumably done by choosing the right choice. But the right choice isn't necessarily sending the Heartstone back. And it's also, we are talking about scenarios that are messy. Now, once again, going back to the interview, we had a content warning there. Not so much in terms of the actual sexy time, but I think scenario 5, maybe 4. Like, one of the later scenarios involves a woman who suffers from nymphomania, and the guy is potentially taking advantage, or can't relate to somebody who has this affliction, kind of deal. The relationships differ, but they are complicated. Although I will say chapter 3 just drained all my enthusiasm because it's fucking high school. Like, it's some high school shit, Honestly, I didn't experience all of them, but I like the second romantic angle because, I'll be honest, I identify much more with adult romance than high school romance because I haven't been a high school student in a very long time. Like, I don't think anyone here has been a high school student for a very long time.
Yeah.
Indeed.
But, to each their own. That, it's like your task is basically to suss out, whether or not returning the feeling, because the Heartstone contained within has the actual feelings of love, and if they don't get it, they're not able to confess the feelings. And that's really kind of the point here, the expression of love, and see what the dice rolls in. And, it's all bound by people with the red string of fate and all that. I mean, that's the serious stuff. It's all buoyed by wacky antics with Tomoe New. God, what's their best friend's name?
Nakizaki?
Yeah,
or Naruko.
Yeah, Naruko. they're the main trio, and more people discuss like the first two girls who discover that there's an angel in the school is because it turns out shooting a bright arrow in the in the middle of where people can see was a bad idea.
Mm-hmm.
That's literally what happens. I'm like, also other angels show up. Theoretical comedy ensues. I'll be honest, a lot of this just reminded me of some generic mediocre romance anime. Not the serious stuff, because honestly a lot of anime doesn't go into topics this complicated in terms of the serious stuff. I'm talking the comedy. Like, if you've seen anime comedy, you've seen this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of this is just a matter of taste.
Yeah. Personal preference.
In terms of the meat of there's a lot here. Both in terms of characterization, in terms of scenarios, in terms of sexual encounters. Like, this is definitely a fully stacked, no pun intended, visual novel. Also worth noting, this is almost fully voiced outside of the main character. It's like it's also got a lot of music, 35 instrumental tracks and 9 vocal songs. I wish that were a bigger selling point for the actual visual novel than it is, but the problem is, the vocal songs, well, they're going to be playing in the fully animated CG segments. Most of the actual visual novel stuff, it's going to be percolated with the instrumental, and I will tell you right now, it's very typical visual novel music, which means essentially white noise. I'm like, it's like we've covered so many visual novels on this show by now. I'm like, yeah, that's some visual novel background music. It's like, so recommending this on the merits of the music, well, we'll get to that in a bit. Like, but there are four character routes that are tabulated with the various choices you make during the course of the story. And this is definitely a visual novel you're going to want to make multiple saves of.
Yeah.
And it allows you to do that.
Yes. I mean,
not
most
like
visual novels do.
Ones.
Yeah. True enough. Like, but yeah, this visual novel does have a lot of save spaces, so you're probably going to want to save before each choice or at each choice. So there's a lot of replay value here. In terms of the art, once again, honestly, I'm kind of disappointed. Like, the art style is a lot more generic than I would have given it credit for. Like, it's not bad, but nothing about, say, the character designs, the background, anything really sticks out. It's all serviceable, but I'll be damned if I could if I'll remember this in a week.
Yeah.
Or it's more trying to pick this out in a lineup kind of deal. Maybe Ainu's character design is probably the most unique here. But yeah, no. I couldn't really recommend this game on the art. Like, I can't discount it either. It's kind of just there. And let me see. So price. Well, I suppose before we get into that, there are two connecting DLC. But the thing is, they are not game DLC. Or at least they're not additional, say, scenarios or anything like that. And also, worth noting, our copies did not come with this DLC, so we couldn't really evaluate the actual contents. That being said, the two pieces of DLC are the Bokuten original soundtrack and vocal collection, which means not only you get the background music, but you get the sound, the actual songs. By the way, instrumentals are not technically songs. You need a singing part for it to be a song.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, this is probably the best way to experience the music. Like, you don't have to actually play through, because I'm not remembering a sound test. And even if it did, like, usually these things don't have the vocal tracks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, they'll have the BGM, but not so much the actual, the full songs. Let's see. And the other is the Kickstart Generation OVA and its album, like, which is an OVA that involves both Bokuten and a couple of other visual novel franchises, if I'm remembering correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, I can't tell you how good this is or anything else, and honestly, that's kind of beyond the scope of what we do on this show, because this is not a game, or a game component. Like, and this is DLC as it is, so it's not part of the package. Anyway, so the pricing for Bokuten goes like this: the visual novel itself is clocking in at a hefty $44.99, which is among, if not the most expensive visual novel we have reviewed on the show.
Mm-hmm.
And the question of, is it worth it? I'm like, you kind of have to be into this sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We're starting to leave the casual visual novel stuff behind, and this is for the hardcore.
I'm like, casual, like, yeah, no. This is kind of like, and this is just the visual novel. The DLC, the vocal collection, and the original soundtrack, that clocks in at $9.99, and the Kickstart Generation OVA Plus album clocks in at $19.99 for a total of $29.98.
Is the adult pack free on the site, or is that also paid?
That is a good question. Let me see. Let's see. I have the page, but I'm not seeing if it's all ages with. Okay, it looks the content patch is free apparently.
Okay.
It usually is.
Yeah, usually, but we haven't encountered the visual novel that sells the adult patch.
Yeah. It
Oh,
mostly has to
yeah,
do with
right.
music licensing stuff.
Right.
If they have to sell it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So yeah, the reason why this game is so expensive is those 9 vocal tracks. That right there. That's a lot. That's a lot of vocal tracks for a fucking visual novel.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm honestly not sure where exactly they're stuffing all of those.
Like vocal songs, like do they have like one for each ending or something?
Even if they did, like that would only be 4 more. This thing has 9. Like, yeah, that is a lot of music. That is a lot of sung vocal music, which is a much higher tier of expense than BGM stuff. Like, in fact, I'm pretty sure that I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't, if there were no licensing fees in terms of the BGM. Like, the sung music. Oh God, yeah. Especially Japan.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, this game is $45, and if you want to go the extra mile, it's another $30. So full package is $75. I'm like, that's an investment.
Yep.
Maybe not AAA ridiculous collector's edition levels of investment, but well beyond what we usually see in our game reviews. So I'm gonna say it right now. Like, in terms of pricing, you have to be into this sort of thing. You have to be kind of hardcore to plunk down $75 for all of this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, as far as the visual novel itself, it's fine. It's like, I think this would have been better had it not been set in high school. Quite honestly.
Yeah, I have to agree.
Like honestly, that always felt
But
like
it's anime. It's got to be in high school.
My eyes just started twitching.
I'm very well aware of that. I'm just saying, like, this thing was just that second scenario was touching upon like real adult commitments and real adult clashes where a fucking high schooler isn't really going to understand the complexities of. Granted, Tomoe seemed to get by, but that's because he's basically a 55-year-old. No, seriously, I guess that was another one of my problems. He was a little bit too adult for his age range.
Yeah.
But I would say the angel had the more typical reaction of what a teenager would think love is.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, and in general terms, the second scenario is their teacher, her boyfriend, like want to get together, but life gets in the way. Like, she's facing pressure from her family to marry because she's almost 30, and also to take over the family business.
Mm-hmm.
He's an aspiring rock singer. He just got his first break on the condition that he breaks up with his girlfriend. And it's further complicated because he's got to go to Tokyo in order to do this, because that's where the music industry is. And the question you have to answer is, what's worth more in this situation? Because it's not a matter of they get together and everything will be good. That's not how things work. And how you it's like how you make that, and it's like, it's not, if you choose the love option, everything is going to be hunky-dory, because
happily ever after.
and they make that clear. So that's another thing. The actual love situations in this visual novel are a hell of a lot more complicated than what you see in a lot of anime.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so it may be worth it getting on those merits, but just the pricing precludes any easy recommendations here.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I cannot just get $45. Like, that's a lot. So call it a mild recommendation. Like, it's a fine enough visual novel on its own merits, but good God, is it fucking expensive.
Mm-hmm.
So
you have to be a big fan of visual novels, basically.
Even more so if you go in for the DLC.
Yeah.
So, anyway, that'll about do it for this week on the Fragments of Silicon reviews. This week ahead, we do have a Friday show. But first, coming Wednesday, February 12th, Thomas Sharp of Gossamer Games. We will be talking about their narratively artistic adventure game Soul. The basic premise is you are exploring a dead world as you are the literal last light in the world.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Haven't been Thomas said he was going to send footage of this. Hasn't yet. So I'll probably ping him tomorrow about that. And on Friday, February 14th, Valentine's Day, we'll be celebrating that by talking to Vedran Klanek of Ocean Media LLC. Why, yes, they did provide the first game of this review session. And they provided a couple of other games over the years, or they were behind that skee-ball game Galix reviewed last year.
Oh boy.
Yeah. And they just released another. I think this is a hidden object game, like the man with the. Hang on. What? Hidden. Yeah, the man with the ivory cane. Yeah, at the very least, it looks like another. Maybe it's an adventure game, it looks like
it's hidden object.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And yeah, I will eventually torment Galix with this at some point. You laughed. I have the code available right now.
Mm-hmm. I know. I'm not taking it lightly.
Anyway, so that's coming up on the week ahead. And until Wednesday, I shall wish you good gaming.